From the fathomless depths of eternity, a single decision resonated, altering the very fabric of creation. God could have ended Lucifer in less than a heartbeat. He possessed the power, the authority, the undeniable right. Yet he didn't. In that pregnant pause, an epical shift occurred. Infinite power chose patience over impulsive action, transcendent purpose over immediate gratification. It was the dawn of understanding where creation learned that true strength isn't measured by the swiftness of a strike, but by the unwavering resolve to restrain one's hand when the very essence of justice cries out for release. This deliberate restraint was not born of indifference towards sin. It was an act of profound moral clarity, a testament to divine wisdom that transcends human comprehension. God wasn't shielding rebellion. He was safeguarding the very bedrock of understanding. Had the spark of defiance been instantly extinguished, heaven would have remained steadfast in its loyalty. However, the cornerstone of that allegiance would have been irrevocably tainted. Obedience would have been tethered to the fear of divine reprisal, not anchored in the unwavering conviction of divine righteousness. Every act of worship, every hymn of praise would have carried a silent, unsettling question buried deep within the heart of each angel. Did they adore God because He is inherently righteous and worthy of adoration, or simply because His might is irresistibly overwhelming? Fear can indeed enforce order, but it can never engender love. And without love, even the celestial realm, with its ethereal beauty and harmonious symphony, would inevitably succumb to the insidious forces of division and fracture once more. Thus, God permitted the fracture to unfold, not because He lacked the omnipotence to prevent it, but because truth in its purest and most transformative form cannot be imposed in silence. It must be witnessed, experienced, and internalized. If God had summarily annihilated Lucifer, the universe would have remained blissfully ignorant of the insidious nature of pride when left unchecked. No being would have truly grasped the devastating consequences of severing oneself from the divine light, the very source of life and radiance, especially for one who was once a mirror, reflecting that celestial glory. Instead of eradicating the rebel God, allowed the inevitable consequences to unveil the insidious lie at the heart of Lucifer's rebellion. He orchestrated a cosmic theater for all creation to witness the stark contrast between the harmonious resonance of divine order and the jarring dissonance of corruption, between the hollow echo of self-glorification and the agonizing spiral of self-destruction. Every moment of Lucifer's descent, every step he took away from the light, became a living, breathing testament to the catastrophic consequences of replacing selfless love with insatiable ambition. Destruction would have been swift, a momentary flicker in the grand tapestry of eternity. But true understanding, the kind that permeates the soul and shapes the course of eternity, demanded time. And time became the fertile field where the seeds of truth took root and grew, ultimately blossoming into undeniable visibility. The silence of God, often misinterpreted as absence or indifference, was anything but empty. It was pregnant with intention, brimming with purpose. It was the calm, unwavering weight of a creator supremely confident in his own righteousness, so secure in his divine authority that he felt no compulsion to shout his decrees from the heavens. He allowed the universe in all its vastness and complexity to observe and comprehend that his rule was not maintained by the shackles of fear, but by the intrinsic, irresistible gravity of goodness itself. Evil was granted ample space to reveal its inherent decay, to unravel its deceptive facade, so that when the final judgment ultimately arrived, no being in the cosmos could ever legitimately question its fairness or its unwavering justice. Within that divine restraint lies the most profound and awe-inspiring demonstration of divine intelligence. Power that effortlessly destroys can indeed be impressive, a fleeting spectacle of raw force. But power that patiently endures, that deliberately holds back for the sake of cultivating wisdom and understanding, is truly unmatched, a testament to the boundless depths of divine character. By exercising such remarkable restraint, God safeguarded the very essence of freedom itself, the capacity for every conscious being, from the highest-ranking angel to the lowliest creature, to choose love willingly, freely, and without coercion, rather than merely acting reflexively out of fear or obligation. Had Lucifer been obliterated the moment pride dared to rear its ugly head, creation would have existed in a state of perfect, unquestioning obedience. But beneath that veneer of perfection would have lurked an unsettling undercurrent of eternal uncertainty. Unanswered questions would have lingered, casting long shadows at the edges of even the brightest light. Would another angel, at some point in the distant future, dare to wonder what Lucifer truly meant? What drove him to such defiance? Would the universe forever whisper about the unsettling possibility that justice might be merely a carefully constructed facade, a thinly veiled attempt to conceal an underlying fear? God's unwavering patience slammed that door shut forever. By allowing rebellion to reach its inevitable and devastating conclusion, he permanently preserved the credibility of his divine government for all eternity. When the final judgment inevitably arrives, no one will ever be able to legitimately claim that they were not given the opportunity to witness the ultimate consequences of defiance. This is precisely why the Almighty refrained from acting in haste, why he chose silence over immediate action. He wasn't silent because he was uncertain or indecisive. He was silent because truth, once fully witnessed and comprehended, cannot be undone. And when truth is indelibly imprinted upon the heart of creation, justice no longer needs to justify itself. When Lucifer ultimately fell, the heavens didn't merely lose a powerful angel. They suffered a profound loss of innocence, a shattering of trust. Imagine the earth-shattering impact this event had on countless angels beings of pure light and unwavering loyalty. To witness one of their own, the most radiant and revered among them, turn against the very throne of the Almighty must have been a trauma of unimaginable proportions. Now consider the question that most beings instinctively avoid asking: what would have transpired if God had simply destroyed Lucifer instantly? On the surface, it seems logical, doesn't it? Eliminate the source of the rebellion swiftly, eradicate the threat, and immediately preserve the peace. But pause for a moment and truly consider the ramifications. If God had acted in such a manner, if he had wiped Lucifer from existence in a blinding flash of divine judgment, what message would that have conveyed to the countless angels who were watching, the billions of celestial beings who bore witness to Lucifer's accusations? It might not have appeared as an act of impartial justice. It could have easily been misconstrued as an act of desperate fear, because Lucifer's rebellion wasn't solely characterized by violence and open defiance. It was also fueled by words, by insidious ideas, by carefully crafted deception. He audaciously accused God of being fundamentally unfair, of wielding his power arbitrarily. He whispered the insidious lie that love under divine rule wasn't genuine love at all, but merely a sophisticated form of control masquerading as righteousness. Therefore, if God had instantly annihilated Lucifer at that crucial juncture, wouldn't that have inadvertently validated Lucifer's claims? Imagine the perspective of an angel witnessing that pivotal moment. Lucifer openly challenges God's inherent fairness, and in the blink of an eye, he vanishes under the weight of divine wrath. Wouldn't that create the unsettling impression that perhaps Lucifer was right all along, that God was indeed suppressing dissent through brute force? This wasn't simply a matter of dealing with one rebellious angel's inflated pride. It was about safeguarding the moral foundation upon which the entire universe was built. You see, God's kingdom is not founded upon the shifting sands of fear. It is built upon the unshakable bedrock of genuine choice. And genuine choice cannot exist in an environment where love is coerced or manipulated. If God had destroyed Lucifer instantaneously, the universe would have undoubtedly obeyed, but that obedience would have stemmed from fear, not from genuine love freely given. And that was never God's ultimate goal. His desire was for every being in heaven, and eventually on earth, to witness for themselves, without any form of coercion or manipulation, the full and devastating nature of rebellion, to truly comprehend the catastrophic consequences of severing oneself from divine truth. Therefore, instead of extinguishing Lucifer's existence, God deliberately allowed his lies to run their course, not because he was weak or indifferent, but because true justice must be not only enforced, but also witnessed and understood by all. The universe had to grasp that the core problem wasn't with God's just and benevolent rule. The problem was rebellion itself, the insidious nature of evil, which, when allowed to flourish, eventually self-destructs. And this is where the brilliance of divine patience becomes undeniably clear. Lucifer's continued existence became the very evidence that God would utilize to expose deception, not through forceful arguments or coercive tactics, but through the inevitable and devastating outcome of rebellion. Now ask yourself, what kind of immeasurable strength does it require to watch the very being you created turn against you, transforming into your sworn enemy, and yet still consciously restrain your power, allowing time to meticulously prove what truth already knows, that is not weakness or indifference. That is perfect, unwavering, divinely controlled restraint. Would you have been capable of making the same choice? Would you have allowed a traitor to continue living fully aware of the immeasurable destruction he would inevitably cause? Or would you have succumbed to the temptation to end it all instantly, silencing the truth in the process? That is the tension that once hung heavy over heaven and continues to resonate through every human heart today. When God deliberately chose not to destroy Lucifer instantly, he wasn't turning a blind eye to evil. He was unveiling a plan so vast in scope, so profoundly intricate, that not even the highest-ranking angels could fully grasp its implications. This wasn't the cessation of justice. It was the genesis of revelation, the dawn of a new era of understanding. You see, God's justice is not impulsive or reactionary. It is deliberate, measured, and unfolds like the gradual penetration of light through layers of impenetrable darkness, relentlessly exposing every hidden shadow until truth prevails. Lucifer's rebellion wasn't merely a criminal act. It was a bold and audacious assertion that God's rule was inherently flawed, that his love was conditional and manipulative, that his authority was oppressive and stifling. Those insidious lies couldn't be silenced through brute force or intimidation. They had to be thoroughly disproven by the unwavering power of truth. Therefore, God allowed Lucifer to continue existing, not to condone his evil actions, but to meticulously reveal the true nature of evil to all creation. And that decision marked the beginning of a silent, cosmic war. A war not waged with physical weapons or fiery swords, but with the undeniable power of evidence. Heaven itself became the courtroom, the celestial stage upon which this epic drama would unfold. The entire universe became the witness, observing and learning from every action and consequence. And Lucifer's choices and their devastating repercussions would ultimately become the damning testimony that would forever define the true essence of rebellion. Now, imagine this scenario. A God possessing infinite power deliberately choosing not to utilize it consciously, holding back the very energy that could effortlessly erase the problem in the blink of an eye. Why? Because if he had succumbed to that temptation, creation would have undoubtedly obeyed him, but they would not have truly understood him. Love that remains untested cannot be proven genuine. Loyalty that is never challenged cannot be fully trusted. Lucifer's continued existence provided every being in the universe with the invaluable opportunity to see, not merely to be told, the fundamental difference between truth and deception, between selfless love and manipulative control. And it is within this divine patience that God's true genius, his boundless wisdom, shines most brilliantly. He transformed Lucifer's rebellion into a profound lesson for all of eternity, a living, unfolding demonstration of the catastrophic consequences that inevitably arise when creation deliberately cuts itself off from its creator, the very source of life and sustenance. Think deeply about that for a moment. Lucifer desired freedom from God, but in rejecting the source of all life, all goodness, and all truth, he unwittingly set himself on a relentless path toward ultimate death and destruction. And God deliberately allowed that path to play out to its inevitable conclusion so that the universe would never again question whether his ways are righteous, just, and perfect. It is undeniably easy to simply destroy an enemy, but to allow your enemy to expose his own inherent corruption, to let his actions condemn him in the eyes of all creation, that is the epitome of divine wisdom. God didn't need to prove his goodness by obliterating evil. He proved his goodness by allowing evil to reveal its own inherent nature, its own devastating consequences. Every time Lucifer acted, every time he twisted truth into a deceptive lie, every time he corrupted innocence or spread chaos and discord, he only strengthened the irrefutable case against himself. And God, in his silent yet sovereign majesty, deliberately allowed the evidence to accumulate to build an unshakable foundation for his ultimate judgment. This is what the Bible alludes to when it states that the patience of God leads to salvation, because his deliberate delay wasn't born of neglect or indifference. It was an act of profound mercy, not primarily for Lucifer, but for humanity itself, for you and me. Had God destroyed Lucifer immediately, you and I would likely not exist in our current form. Humanity was born into this grand cosmic demonstration not merely as passive spectators, but as active participants. We became the living, breathing proof of the consequences that arise when free will collides with deception, and the transformative power of grace in the aftermath of such a collision. Now consider this profound truth. If God in His infinite power and wisdom can patiently wait for justice to prevail, not out of weakness, but out of strength and deliberate design, what does that reveal about the way He interacts with you in your own life? When He doesn't immediately intervene, when He allows events to unfold slowly and deliberately. Could it be that He is patiently allowing the truth to surface, to reveal itself in its fullness? Could it be that just as with Lucifer, God's deliberate delay is not a sign of denial or indifference, but a reflection of a far greater, more intricate divine design? Allow that question to linger in your thoughts, to permeate your understanding. Because the story of Lucifer is not simply an ancient tale of rebellion, it is a living, breathing narrative of revelation, a revelation that continues to unfold, even in this very moment. Let's be honest with ourselves. If God had created all beings as mere automatons devoid of free will and independent thought, this story would have never existed. There would have been no rebellion, no deception, no suffering, but also no genuine love. Because love in its truest and most transformative form cannot exist without the capacity for genuine choice. And that is the very heart of this profound mystery. Why didn't God simply destroy Lucifer instantly? You see, when God created Lucifer, He didn't merely create a celestial servant and obedient drone. He created a being endowed with the capacity to choose to love, to think critically, to make independent decisions. That wasn't an oversight or a flaw in His design. It was an act of divine brilliance, a testament to the boundless potential of creation. However, freedom inevitably comes with inherent risks, and Lucifer's rebellion served as undeniable proof that those risks were indeed very real. Still, God did not regret His decision to bestow the gift of free will upon His creation. He could have easily rescinded it, reprogrammed every angel to obey His commands without question. But if He had succumbed to that temptation, the universe would have been transformed into a desolate kingdom of slaves, not a vibrant community of sons and daughters, and that is simply not who God is. He doesn't desire forced loyalty or coerced obedience. He yearns for authentic love, freely given and wholeheartedly embraced. Therefore, when Lucifer turned his freedom against the very one who bestowed it upon him, God chose not to destroy him, because doing so would have effectively destroyed the very meaning of freedom itself. Think deeply about it. What kind of freedom is it if disobedience automatically leads to immediate annihilation? That's not freedom at all. That's simply a sophisticated form of control. And God's kingdom doesn't operate on the principles of control or manipulation. It thrives on the unwavering foundation of truth. It flourishes on the unconditional love that is freely given or not given at all. So God allowed Lucifer's rebellion to unfold, because only through the stark contrast between good and evil could creation truly understand the devastating consequences of misusing freedom. He allowed the radiant light to coexist with the encroaching darkness, so that every living being could one day make an informed choice between the two, with their eyes wide open and their hearts fully engaged. And that is the inherent price of free will, the potential for pain, the inevitability of conflict, the presence of chaos, but also the enduring possibility of authenticity, because real love, the kind that withstands the trials of time, must be actively chosen, not passively programmed. Now imagine the immense emotional weight of that decision for God. He knew, with perfect clarity, the immeasurable cost of Lucifer's freedom. He foresaw the countless wars, the pervasive corruption, the unspeakable heartbreak, and the agonizing suffering that would ripple across the earth as a direct consequence of that initial act of defiance. And yet, he didn't undo it. He didn't retract the gift of free will. Why? Because love without the freedom to reject it simply isn't love at all. That is the profound paradox of divine love. It is powerful enough to grant you the freedom to reject it. And if that truth doesn't compel you to pause and deeply contemplate its implications, it most certainly should, because the very same God who allowed Lucifer to rebel also extends to you the freedom to choose to question, to doubt, to even walk away if you so desire. And so, in the quiet aftermath of rebellion, when the smoke of celestial war finally cleared creation, found itself standing at the precipice of a revelation that would reshape eternity. Lucifer was not destroyed, not because God lacked the power, but because God possessed a wisdom so vast, so breathtakingly deliberate, that even angels trembled before its magnitude. In that silence, a lesson was carved into the fabric of time itself. Truth does not need to rush. It stands eternal, immovable, unthreatened by accusation or defiance. God's refusal to annihilate evil instantly was not a retreat. It was an invitation for every being in existence to witness with undeniable clarity what rebellion truly becomes when divorced from the source of life. Pride does not need to be crushed. It collapses beneath its own weight. Deception does not require execution. It exposes itself when given time. And the universe watched. They watched pride decay into madness. They watched freedom twisted into slavery. They watched the brightest light become the darkest shadow. Only then, when all evidence stood irrefutable, would judgment fall, and no voice in existence could ever challenge its fairness again. In the divine pause, God did not lose control. He proved he never needed to exert it to keep it. And perhaps the most staggering truth of all is this: the patience that preserved the universe is the very patience that now pursues your heart. So in essence, we've seen that God's choice not to immediately destroy Lucifer wasn't a sign of weakness, but a testament to his ultimate strength and wisdom. It was a profound act of love, allowing us all of creation to truly understand the devastating consequences of choosing separation from him. It was a demonstration that genuine love and freedom can only exist when choice is real, and that truth in the end will always prevail. What are your thoughts on this? Do you have any questions that this raises for you? I'd love to hear your perspective in the comments below. Let's get a conversation going. And if you found this thought-provoking and inspiring, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future explorations of faith, wisdom, and the character of God. We'll be diving into more fascinating topics soon,